Johannesburg City Council's decision to overwhelmingly vote in favor of changing the name of a road where a US consulate office is located after a Palestinian freedom fighter has set Zionists crawling in discomfort. And I'm not surprised. Trump and his cronies can't accept the fact that a small civic body far away in South Africa could make such a powerful statement whereby the US would become a laughingstock globally. Although the idea to rename the one Sandton Drive in Johannesburg to Leila Khaled Drive was first mooted by local politicians last year, this was believed to have gained momentum in recent days following the expulsion of Ibrahim Rasool, South Africa's ambassador to the US, for allegedly criticizing Trump. Last week, the Johannesburg City Council voted overwhelmingly to name the street after a prominent Palestinian freedom fighter, given the Israel and its lobby effectively running the US. The development was deemed a direct attempt to inflict humiliation on Trump. People have woken up to the reality that if you want to insult Israel, you can insult the US and vice versa. Seething in anger, Joel Pollack, who is projecting himself as the future US ambassador to South Africa, went into a meltdown on social media. Pollack has often been labeled as an Israeli Zionist, known for his deeply racist and Islamophobic views. He writes for a publication, Breitbart, which has been widely condemned for publishing racist and misogynistic content. This Polak chap took to Twitter to threaten that renaming of Sandton Drive to Leila Khaled Drive would not be acceptable and the US would close its consulate if this happened. He wrote on Twitter, and I quote, Johannesburg City Council rejected a motion to rescind the renaming of Sandton Drive for Palestinian terrorist Leila Khalid to force the US consulate there to use her name on its letterhead. Helpfully, the renaming would create another savings for Dodge. Close the consulate, end quote. Pro-Israeli elements made desperate attempts to have the decision reversed, but failed.
We recommend to Council to rescind the approval of the motion to rename Sandton Drive to Leila Khaled. Madam Speaker, I table the motion to Council for serious consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Shackelford. Does the House agree to rescind the approval of the motion? Okay.
The ANC's first Deputy Secretary General, Nomvula Mokonyen, threw her weight behind the move as she explained why this change was needed.
We must, working together, ensure that that campaign of the city of Johannesburg of renaming Sandton Drive into Leila Khaled happens in our lifetime. It has to happen because we want the United States of America's embassy to change their letterheads. When they have their letterheads, they must say United States of America, number 1, Leila Khaled Drive in Johannesburg, in Gauteng, because we are sending a message. They cannot dominate us and tell us what to do. It must be in their face, it must be in their computers, it must be in their letterheads.
The Trump administration is so incensed that it has decided to arm twist the spineless South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa, to intervene and use his power to reverse the name change. But former South African Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor is not holding back when it comes to exposing the Israeli-controlled US regime. Pandor was quite instrumental in bringing South Africa's case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. You have to listen to some of her words from her recent speech.
Contributors to a recent Mapungubwe Institute publication titled Africa and the World suggest that the unipolar dominance of the past 40 years is being disrupted by a crude, more vicious geo-economic dominance. The intention, they assert, is to enforce compliance on vulnerable states to the dictates of United States foreign policy preferences. And this results from the world striving increasingly to create multipolarity. And so those who have enjoyed a very powerful role in influencing others to adopt their policy direction, when they see a shift away from a unipolarity, they become extremely vicious in response. And this is part of what South Africa is experiencing today. We as South Africa have generally pursued an independent foreign policy unencumbered by the preferences of other countries. In the past decade, we have seen a growing impatience toward South Africa's independence in foreign relations. This has stretched from concern at our trade relations with China, which is now our largest trading partner, to concern about South Africa's solidarity with Cuba and with Palestine and their struggle for freedom. Our direct action as a country of challenging Israel's war in Gaza has caused significant displeasure among the friends of Israel.
I wonder why she is not the president of South Africa. Well, this is the power of the Israeli lobby. Whether it's South Africa or India or Pakistan or the UK or the EU or frankly speaking, anywhere else in the world, you cannot become the head of the state if you don't agree to show allegiance to the Israeli lobby. Unfortunately, that is a fact. If the current South African president had any self-respect, he would have reacted with some spine when his ambassador was expelled by the US. The expulsion of Ibrahim Rasool, and let it be absolutely clear, was an insult on South Africa. It was an insult of South Africa. But Ramaphosa remained silent and instead talked about improving relations with the US. You would have expected a black president of South Africa to take on the racist thugs from the current Israeli-controlled US administration. Ramaphosa represents a party which led the fight against the apartheid for decades. It's unbelievable how he has now surrendered himself to the rogue regime of Israeli-controlled Donald Trump. Many believe that it was Joel Pollak who convinced Marco Rubio to expel Ibrahim Rasool. It was Pollak who had first written a misleading piece against Rasool, who he had targeted from the day one to have him expelled from the US. Don't take my word for it. This is Naeem Jinnah, a prominent South African analyst.
Was there anything from Ambassador Rasool's comments that stood out for you and warrants this type of action from the US administration?
No, not at all. I mean, even the clip that was played, which is the heart of the complaint against him. And let me say, when Mark Rubio tweeted his declaration of Ibrahim as persona non grata, it was based on an article he read. He clearly hadn't watched the webinar. An article he read written by Joel Pollak, a former South African, was racist, as we all know, writing in a racist publication, Breitbart, who lifted just that little bit from a 2-hour webinar and posted that.
While the South African president may have shown his spineless character on the expulsion of his ambassador, the development has angered South Africans in general. One top South African politician, Mehmet Feifadag, threatened to set the US embassy on fire if Polak Chap was confirmed as the next US ambassador to the country. This is not the first time that the US is being humiliated by such name change. Many years ago, the government of West Bengal in India changed the name of a street in Calcutta, where the US consulate is situated, after a revolutionary Vietnamese leader, Ho Chi Minh. I was born in Calcutta, which is now called Kolkata, so I should know this. This was also deemed as an attempt to humiliate the US. Till today, Ho Chi Minh Sarani remains the permanent address of the US consulate office in Kolkata, as you can see on the screen. As for Leila Khaled, she was a prominent Palestinian freedom fighter belonging to Popular Front of the Liberation of Palestine. She gained global fame for her alleged role in the hijacking of TWF Flight 840 in 1969, and one of the 4 simultaneous Dawson's Field hijackings the following year. She was imprisoned for the hijackings but was released in a prisoner exchange deal later. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.